My name is Camille Davenport. I'm 44 years old, and the last time my family saw me in uniform, it was 2002, at my Air Force officer training graduation in San Antonio, Texas. I was 22, standing ramrod straight in blues, too big for my ambition, while my sister leaned over to her college boyfriend and muttered, "Give it a year, she'll be back stocking shelves at Target." Now it's 2024, and we're not on a parade field. We're in a probate courtroom in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Fluorescent lights, stale air, mahogany walls that pretend to be justice. This wasn't just paperwork. We were dissecting the legacy of my father, Elias Davenport, founder of Davenport Aeronautics, a boutique aerospace research firm known for designing propulsion systems years ahead of their time, his life's work, his heartbeat. And my sister Vanessa wanted to sell it to her husband's multinational defense conglomerate like it was scrap metal. Her attorney, a polished shark in an obsidian suit, stood to speak, voice dripping with refined disdain. "Your Honor, we are discussing control of a highly complex aerospace company. And yet, Miss Camille Davenport has spent her adult life wandering from base to base as a minor bureaucrat. No property, no business experience, no ties, no roots." I sat still. Navy blue suit, bronze service pin, hair in a regulation bun, my hands resting on a worn leather folder containing exactly what they prayed I wouldn't bring. Vanessa dabbed her eyes with a linen handkerchief, the dutiful daughter, the hometown success story, who'd married Thomas Harwood, CEO of Helix Defense Systems, a corporation famous for swallowing family-owned tech firms whole. Dad called him a vulture with a boardroom. Thomas called my father a relic dragging aerospace into the past. And now, with my father buried only 6 weeks, the vulture was here to feed. The trust was clear, we were co-trustees, but Vanessa had filed a petition to remove me on grounds of incompetence. Her lawyer continued milking every word. She has no foundation in corporate leadership, no tangible assets, just decades of clerical military postings. I didn't speak. Not yet. Because the thing about secrets, especially the kind written in classified ink and sealed under federal contract, is that timing is everything. He was holding up a heavily redacted copy of my service file, one my own attorney had submitted. Ink black lines covered entire pages. It looked dull, unremarkable, designed to be dismissed. I could feel Judge Hallstrom's eyes on me, late 60s, thinning silver hair, the quiet exhaustion of a man who'd seen too many families turn inheritance into warfare. He glanced from the file to my face with the same expression one gives a weather report, detached, unsurprised. To him, I was just another forgotten daughter in a well-worn script, the underachiever, the wanderer, the sibling who never settled down. Vanessa had written that version of me carefully over decades. She was the sun. I was the shadow. She stayed. I left. She married wealth. I married duty. I still remember telling them I'd joined the Air Force. I was 19. The living room smelled like lemon polish and my mother's tea. My father had looked at me for a long moment. No smile, but something softer in his eyes, like quiet approval. My mother had pressed a tissue to her lips, whispering worries about war zones and danger. Vanessa just laughed, sharp, metallic. The Air Force. Really, Camille couldn't get into a real university. Well, at least they'll teach you to fold a fitted sheet properly. That was always her tone. Acid dipped in sugar. When I made captain, she sent a card. "Wow, look at you. Middle management in uniform." When I was deployed to Qatar, she said, "Hot desert boring paperwork sounds glamorous." She never asked what I actually did. Never wondered why my mail sometimes came from Ramstein Osan Yokota, Kabul. I didn't own a house or a wedding album, so to her, I owned nothing at all. The worst part. In Dad's final years, she convinced him of that version. After our mother died, he grew quieter, lonelier. Vanessa and her husband Thomas were always there, bringing dinner, managing medications, whispering their truths into the silence. By the time he passed, I was no longer the daughter who sent postcards from every continent. I was the disappointment who never came home. And now in this courtroom she was polishing that lie into a legal argument. Her lawyer called her to the stand. She stood gracefully, smoothed her black dress, and walked past me. She didn't even look at me. She took her place in the witness box, smoothing her skirt before folding her hands neatly in her lap. Then came the expression I knew too well, a soft, trembling smile crafted for sympathy. My sister. I love her. Vanessa began, voice quivering in just the right places. But she doesn't understand this world. Our father's world. She leaned forward slightly as if confiding in the judge. He built Davenport Aeronautics from nothing. It was his life, his legacy. He was a visionary, and he trusted me to protect it. She glanced at me with manufactured tenderness. Camille was always different. She never wanted any part of the company. She wanted out. And she left. A pause. A gentle sigh. Yes, she served our country and we're proud of her. But military life is simple, structured. She follows orders. She files reports. She moves where she's assigned. Her eyes hardened, but her voice stayed soft. That isn't leadership. This company needs innovation, strategy, someone who understands markets, risk, global defense contracts. She gestured toward Thomas, her husband, seated behind the plaintiff's table like a king in waiting. He gave a solemn nod. Thomas has advised me every step. He believes in Dad's legacy. With the backing of Helix Defense Systems, we can take Davenport Aeronautics to the next level, secure it for the future. It was a lie so polished it could have been framed. My father would have set fire to his entire factory before letting Thomas Harwood's corporation touch a single blueprint. He said as much during the calls we shared, usually past midnight, his voice gravel-soft with fatigue and anger. That man's a parasite, Camille. He doesn't invent, he consumes. Those calls were the only place I could speak plainly with him. In his final years, something changed. He stopped asking about my assignments or medals. Instead, he asked about supply chain breaches, foreign acquisition threats, cyber espionage targeting aerospace firms. I couldn't tell him everything, but I told him enough. My job isn't just paperwork, Dad. It's protecting what keeps this country safe, making sure the wrong hands never get the right technology. He was silent for a long time. Then quietly, good. Watch the vultures, honey. Watch them close. He knew. Maybe not the full picture, but enough. And that's why he made me co-trustee. I wasn't decoration. I was the failsafe. And Vanessa was trying to disable it. Her lawyer finished his questioning. If you want to know what happens when I finally open that file in court, stay with me, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. So to be clear, Ms. Harwood, the judge said, folding his hands, your sole motivation is to protect your father's legacy. From a well-meaning but fundamentally unqualified sibling? Yes, Vanessa whispered, voice soft as silk, a single tear tracing down her cheek. It's what he would have wanted. My attorney, Mr. Davies, stood calm, unhurried, like a man rearranging chess pieces no one else could see. Ms. Harwood, he began, voice level. You testified that your sister's career is administrative support. How did you arrive at that conclusion? Vanessa offered a delicate shrug. It's what she's always implied. She's very private. Everything is classified or I can't talk about it. And after 20 years, I mean, you'd expect something more. A command. A title. Something real. The words were sugar-coated poison, so Davies continued. You are not aware of her official role, her rank, or any commendation she has received during her service in the United States Air Force. I know she's some kind of officer, Vanessa said, irritation bleeding through. But no, she never shared specifics. Davies nodded once. No further questions. Judge Hallstrom exhaled, glancing at the clock. Very well. Does the defense have any rebuttal to the claims regarding Ms. Davenport's lack of business or leadership qualifications? We do, Your Honor, Davies said, and for the first time his voice carried weight. We have a rebuttal witness, but first we submit into evidence my client's unredacted service record, along with a letter of commendation from her commanding officer. He handed a thick file to the clerk. Seconds later, copies reached Vanessa's counsel. I watched it happen. The confident smirk of her attorney faltered. He blinked, leaned toward Thomas, whispered. Thomas's jaw clenched like granite. Vanessa stared confused. Then the judge spoke. His brow was raised, his voice changed sharper, attentive. I see, he said slowly. Lieutenant Colonel Davenport. He paused. Impressive. Very impressive. The words echoed like a dropped pin in a cathedral. Vanessa turned to stare at me, eyes wide. Lieutenant Colonel, not paper pusher, not a transient bureaucrat, a field-grade officer, command authority, clearance, responsibility. And Davies wasn't finished. As for our witness, Your Honor, he said, turning toward the double doors at the back of the courtroom, the defense calls Brigadier General Robert Whitlock to the stand. The room went silent. The name meant nothing to Vanessa or her lawyer, but I saw Thomas Harwood's face. It didn't just pale, it emptied. His jaw loosened. His eyes lost focus for a split second, like a man realizing the ground beneath him had disappeared. The heavy courtroom doors opened. Two men in dark suits, federal agents, no mistaking it, entered first. Between them walked a man in full Air Force service dress blues. On his shoulders, a single silver star. Brigadier General Robert Whitlock. Every step he took radiated quiet, immovable authority. The row of ribbons across his chest wasn't decoration, it was a resume of war zones, covert operations, and classified skies. The room fell silent. The court reporter stopped typing. Even the judge straightened unconsciously. General Whitlock took the stand without being asked. Right hand raised, sworn in, sat. General Judge Hallstrom said, his voice laced with new respect. To what do we owe this honor? The general didn't blink. I'm here on behalf of one of my officers. He turned his head slowly and looked directly at me. Lieutenant Colonel Camille Davenport. Vanessa whipped around so fast her earrings nearly flew off. The mascara-streaked grief on her face now looked almost theatrical. General Whitlock continued, now addressing the judge. It has come to my attention that Lieutenant Colonel Davenport's professional competence and integrity have been called into question here. For the record, let me be entirely clear. He paused, not for effect, but for precision. Lieutenant Colonel Davenport is among the most capable officers I have ever commanded. She is not, nor has she ever been, in a clerical or administrative position. The judge leaned forward. She is a special agent with the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. A ripple of gasps washed across the gallery. OSI, the Air Force's version of the FBI, counterintelligence, espionage, fraud, criminal investigations. General Whitlock's voice remained steady. For the past 18 months, Lieutenant Colonel Davenport has served as lead investigator on a joint agency operation known as Operation Iron Falcon. His eyes shifted, locking directly onto Thomas, an investigation into large-scale defense contract fraud. Specifically, contractors substituting unsafe or counterfeit materials into aerospace systems and weapons platforms. Thomas didn't move. Couldn't. And, Your Honor, the general added softly, one of the companies under active investigation is Helix Defense Systems, owned by Mr. Thomas Harwood. Silence, heavy as a verdict. Vanessa wasn't looking at me anymore. Her eyes were locked on Thomas, whose face had turned the color of wet concrete. His mouth hung slightly open, frozen, not in anger but in terror. He finally understood. One of the primary targets of Operation Iron Falcon, General Whitlock said, his voice now calm and lethal, is a corporation known as Helix Defense Systems. Silence. He, The general continued, turning toward the gallery. Is Mr. Thomas Harwood, Chief Executive Officer of Helix Defense Systems. Vanessa made a sound, small, broken, half gasp, half denial. Her perfectly manicured hand flew to her mouth, as if she could push the truth back in. General Whitlock wasn't finished. "Your Honor," he said, turning back to Judge Hallstrom. Lieutenant Colonel Davenport's mobile lifestyle and absence of personal assets are part of a carefully constructed operational cover. Her role is not clerical. It is to detect and dismantle threats against the Department of the Air Force and the Department of Defense, including corruption, fraud, and corporate espionage. He paused, letting the words settle like a storm cloud. "I would argue," he added quietly, "that makes her uniquely qualified to recognize a vulture when she sees one." My breath caught. Vulture. My father's word. The one he'd whispered across midnight phone calls, voice tired but unbroken. Across the room, the gallery sat motionless. No shifting, no coughing, no tapping screens. Even the air felt still. The general continued, voice unwavering. "Her integrity is beyond reproach. Any claim to the contrary is not only insulting to a decorated officer, it may constitute a deliberate attempt to obstruct a federal investigation." He looked directly at Vanessa's attorney, who suddenly seemed very interested in the floor. Judge Hallstrom inhaled slowly, then spoke. "The petition to remove Lieutenant Colonel Camille Davenport as co-trustee is denied with extreme prejudice." He lifted his gavel, but didn't strike it yet. "In light of General Whitlock's testimony and the implication of criminal motives," he said, voice rising, "Lieutenant Colonel Davenport is hereby granted sole trusteeship and full control of Davenport Aeronautics, effective immediately pending any and all federal proceedings." Gavel. One sharp crack, like a rifle report. And Mr. Harwood, the judge, added, voice turning cold as winter steel, "I strongly advise you to remain available to federal authorities. I would strongly advise you not to leave the jurisdiction." With that, Judge Hallstrom stood and exited through his chamber's door. It was over. The two federal agents who had entered with General Whitlock didn't rush. They moved with quiet certainty, looping around the plaintiff's table until they stood behind Thomas Harwood. "Thomas Harwood," one agent said calmly, showing his credentials, "you are under arrest for federal offenses related to defense contract fraud and obstruction of justice." Vanessa screamed. A raw, strangled sound ripped from her chest. She tried to reach him, but the second agent stepped between them, firm but gentle. Thomas didn't speak. His face was blank. No anger, no denial, just the empty stare of a man watching his empire collapse. Silver handcuffs clicked around his wrists. His $1,000 suit suddenly looked like a costume. I stood smoothing the lapel of my charcoal jacket. I picked up my leather portfolio, the same one they thought held nothing. Mr. Davies gave my shoulder a brief, reassuring squeeze. Then General Whitlock approached, stopping just in front of me. "Outstanding work, Colonel," he said quietly. "Your father would be proud." "Thank you, sir," I replied. My voice was steady. My pulse was thunder. I turned to leave and found Vanessa standing in my path. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks. Her hands trembled. Her perfect composure was gone. She wasn't looking at Lieutenant Colonel Davenport, OSI agent. She was looking at her sister, and realizing she'd never actually seen her. "Camille," she whispered, voice cracked. I didn't know." I looked at her. The woman who'd mocked my uniform, dismissed my service, erased my existence to make hers shine brighter. I felt nothing. No rage. No satisfaction. Just a quiet understanding that the bond between us had died long before this courtroom. "No, Vanessa," I said softly. "You never asked." I stepped past her without another word. Outside, sunlight spilled across the courthouse steps. The air smelled of dust pine and freedom. For the first time in 20 years, I could breathe. "My name is Camille Davenport. I'm 44 years old, and today I took back my father's legacy. And my own." If you stood beside me in that courtroom, if you felt even a flicker of what it means to be underestimated, dismissed, and finally heard, then I ask you to stay with me. Tell me what you would have done. Tell me where you would have found the strength. Leave a comment below. I read everyone. And if you believe dignity is worth defending no matter the cost, subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because life has taught me this. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You just need to stop doubting yourself.